This is Lockie the lion, one of many furry critters that's been given the challenging job. Today, the local Lions Club delivered the first batch of recruits to the Charlestown Police Station. It's hoped by all lions involved the idea will catch on.
We've sent out scripts to them offering these Lockie lions, as we have called them. And it's hoped, of course, that it's going to help police, and it might be extended even to the fire services and the ambulances in the district.
The trauma toys will be put to work straight away, offering comfort to hundreds of children.
Road crashes, the trauma involved there we have on a regular basis with children involved. Also what comes to mind is domestic violence situations. At all hours of the night and early hours of the morning we have children at the station, and of course parents are upset and the children are upset. We have lost children, of course, that we find, and sometimes lapses before we find parents or relatives. So there's going to be a tremendous amount of use for them, I feel.
And despite being on duty all hours of the day, one thing's for certain, Lockie and his friends will soon be assured of a permanent home. Melinda Smith, NBN News. Latest figures show the rate of suicide in Australia now exceeds deaths from road accidents. Although more females are likely to attempt taking their own lives, more males succeed. The highest rates of suicide are among teenage boys and elderly men. Margaret Appleby is Australia's representative on an international committee for suicide prevention. She's written many books on the subject and has just returned from a major conference in the United States.
We know that many people consider suicide as an option following the death of a loved one or a friend, and we must really have plans in place to help those people. So that was a great emphasis.
According to Margaret, education is the key, especially when 91% of all young people who attempt suicide tell close friends and not their parents.
It's important that their friends will know what to do, simply need to get them help. And it's important, I believe, that we educate the young people and tell them those things.
Suicide is a taboo subject, the real fact's not widely known. A popular myth is that people who talk about it won't do it, but for the majority it's a desperate cry for help. And there's no warning. The fact, 8 out of 10 people give signs. Another mistaken perception is that all suicidal people are unbalanced. In fact, most are not mentally ill. It is a fact, though, that a simple friendly chat could make a difference.
A cup of coffee can save a life by just simply sitting down and listening to the person, taking them seriously, and then getting them help with a professional.
Anyone needing help should contact Lifeline or other counselling services. Melinda Smith, NBN News. These top-level business executives may look like they're having fun. In fact, they're hard at work.
Oh, you know, you're charmers. Stick with it and get fired up about the endorphins. You're hot.
Well, the major thing is that we do have power within our own hands to affect some very important...
And in medicine, what we're now finding is the importance of working on that equation, going from laughter to happiness, happiness to health.
Bob Fellows says we need to be more aware of those trying to manipulate us. Proving his point with a little magic and questionable mind reading, he claims too often we allow others to take control.
What we're doing is, instead of making lifestyle choices for ourselves, we're placing authority in other people. So it has an application both to the workplace and health.
And the magic?
Well, the magic shows that intelligent people can be fooled no matter how smart they are. And I think a lot of people come to conferences on well-being and say, well, this would be good advice for someone else, but I don't need it because I'm smart. But actually, it's intelligent people who are most easily fooled.
When a person tries to control someone close to them by bullying, bashing, even threatening them, it's called domestic violence. This is a crime and it happens inside the home. 95% of victims are women, with males the perpetrators.
We are seeing an increase in violent behaviour in this state.
Over 20% of Australian men consider the use of violence against women is acceptable. 700,000 adult Australians think using a weapon against one's female partner is justifiable. The incidence of domestic violence on the Central Coast is the second highest in the state. Despite this, health authorities say the range of facilities that have been available to deal with the problem so far have been largely inadequate.
We have two facilities for women and kids escaping domestic violence, and those are two women's refuges at either end of the coast. Really, there are no other specialist services at all offered to victims of domestic violence.
Today, the Central Coast Area Health Service launched a domestic violence policy which Nancy developed. The Central Coast and southwestern Sydney are the only two regions to have designed individual policies in the state so far. The Central Coast intends appointing a permanent domestic violence coordinator within 3 months to implement the policy, which includes an awareness program informing domestic violence victims of where to go to get help.
Jundamurra, the clear winner, but they needed a photo to determine second and third. The winner also happened to be Gary Harley's tip. The Cronulla $59.90 and the trifecta, a very handy $3,272.40.
The company is called Air Liquide. Its new plant on Kooragang Island is purpose-built to produce pure carbon dioxide. This gas is emitted from nearby Incitec as a waste product when it manufactures the chemical ammonia. Air Liquide has found a way to make use of carbon dioxide. This process involves carbon dioxide being pumped from Incitec. It's then cleaned, purified, frozen and compressed into liquid form. It's kept in a storage tank ready for loading into trucks.
We're adding value to a product which would otherwise simply go up into the atmosphere.
The plant is fully automated and produces 55 tonnes of liquid carbon dioxide a day. The Newcastle plant is one of 4 Air Liquide has throughout Australia producing carbon dioxide. The local product will be sold throughout New South Wales. Its uses include making the bubbles in beer and coke. It goes into fire extinguishers. Winemakers use it to stop the oxidisation of wine. Dry ice is also made from it.
When Qantas or Australian Airlines takes food in their kitchens and puts it in their trolleys, they need dry ice to keep it pure and fresh before they get it on the aircraft.
Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
Nobody kicks sand in 30-year-old Gary Mungovern's face. Mr Australia 1993 seems rough and tough, but Gary says it's just a look.
Image is a big thing, yeah, just got to look the part. I like the not the mean look, but clean cut.
On the weekend, the Maitland athlete won the National Amateur Bodybuilding title, but decided against appearing at the World Championships in New Zealand. A week between events was not enough. He's going to work out for another year and go for the Mr. Universe event. Also knocking back a world title invitation, Lisa Appleton. The 26-year-old is state figure fitness champ. She came third at the National Championships. But like Gary, she's waiting for the Universe event and who knows, modelling work, perhaps even a movie.
That would be really good, yeah. I'd like that.
Peter Ryan, NBN News.
You know, if it came to it.
Champagne. It's the stuff that dreams of luxury are made of. But the drop that puts the sparkle into those dreams has in the past been usually associated with France. Now the champenois style is coming to fruition much closer to home, being bottled in the Hunter for the first time this year at the Calais estate near Pacholben.
Over the years of our small company growing and get a little bit bigger, we're in a situation where we're now selling a lot more champagne. So it's now becoming more cost efficient for us to look at their own gear and do our own job in the Hunter Valley.
Until now, Hunter wineries have had to send their produce to South Australia to be turned into the bubbly. Calais has installed $100,000 worth of equipment and plans to spend another $150,000 to process the wine locally. About 40,000 bottles will be corked this year, worth more than $500,000. And the winery expects that figure to grow with each vintage.
There's some excellent champagnes produced in Australia, but I think probably the name change to Australian sparkling wine or just plain old method champenoise would be the future, I'd say.
The locally bottled champagne won't be on our tables until about April next year. In the meantime, I'm sure there's something we can find to make do. Cheers. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
Roger Peters admits he...
Despite exhaustive investigation, police have been unable to come up with any leads in the murder of Ada Collins. She was bashed and strangled to death in the bedroom of her Gulgabba Street home at Swansea, where she had lived alone. Apart from evidence of a back door having been forced and a window screen dislodged, nothing in the house had been disturbed. Mrs. Collins was last seen alive by neighbours 2 days before her body was found by a son who'd gone to visit. Detectives have determined she died between midnight and 8 a.m. on November the 29th, a Sunday. If you can help with information, contact your local police station or Crime Stoppers on 008 025 122.
Roger Peters admits he's a dedicated follower of football. He says it's more than a battle of strength and skill, it's also a game of the mind.
It's what's happening on up here that really makes the difference between a winning and a losing side.
Okay. Formerly an academic at Newcastle University, for the last few years he's worked with hundreds of athletes, tuning them for excellence. When you achieve the excellence, Roger says the winning bit follows. Through his association with the Newcastle Knights, he's been asked to advise the glamour side in World Rugby League.
Going over to Wigan, and they're already a winning team and they want to keep it that way. And so if they're going to keep it that way, they've got to use every kind of resource. And of course, as I say, psychological skills make the edge.
Former Knights assistant coach John Doherty was appointed coach of Wigan earlier this year. Roger says he's looking forward to working with elite athletes the calibre of Martin O'Fire. He leaves for England at the end of next month. He'll be away for a few weeks. Meanwhile, a tip for the average footballer, tennis player or golfer, the psychologist says the main thing is to have fun.
When you're addressing the ball, you should have a relaxed composure, and then the intensity, and then hit the ball, and you're going to get the best shot.
Picture this, on your feet. That's what a group of Newcastle businessmen wants Australians to do. The Adamstown Rotary Club put its best feet forward this week to help the wool industry. These men and women believe if every Australian buys a new pair of woolen socks this winter, it would help the industry out of its slump. And club members weren't at all sheepish about getting the message across. This may not look like a scientific experiment, but it can be simple exercises like these that encourage primary school students to study science during their secondary years.
I think it's very important that the students are aware of the science and technology that was able to promote or to bring about these things that they can use every day.
Students were today entertained with a magic show hosted by resident magician and teacher Richard Padden before learning about science firsthand. A number of workstations, including laser balls, water bottles and moving patterns, captured the children's attention and interest. All scientifically based, the activities provided the children with an enjoyable introduction to the world of science.
As a sign of come, member for Gosford Chris Harcher and the driving force behind the project, Fred Watkins, hit off today. Within 3 months, this bushland will be transformed into a driving range.
Well, it means that they'll have a facility that is desperately needed in the area. Most of the golf courses on the Central Coast are closed for membership. You just cannot get in them.
Fred Watkins welcomes the approval from the Minister for Planning, Robert Webster. Watkins says the golf range is just the beginning. Once the golfers raise enough money from stage 1, they'll construct a 9-hole public course, which should be operating within 2 years.
This is a community-based golf course. It is financed by the community, will be constructed by the community. All of the tradesmen on the Central Coast will be used to construct this facility.
During the development of the site, the Kincumber Golf and Sports Club Committee will plant about 2,000 trees. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
Around 10:15 this morning, a 16-year-old youth wearing a balaclava went into this home at Holgate near Terrigal and made certain demands. The woman was menaced with a knife and was apparently slightly wounded in the incident, but not seriously hurt. The youth then apparently joined others who had allegedly been waiting outside in a van and took off towards Terrigal, where the vehicle was noticed by police at the Wombrel shops. As the policemen radioed for backup, the youths came out of a shop and were arrested. After searches and preliminary inquiries, the group was taken to Gosford Police Station, where questioning is continuing. Late this afternoon, police were still not revealing details of the incident.
They met last night for their last training run and the chance to get the hang of each other's play. Dave Metcalf from the Warners Bay Club will play centre. He brings a wealth of experience to the side, and playing alongside Fred Messmaker in the ruck, the team looks very strong up the centre. Backing Messmaker up will be 17-year-old Matt Saunders from Singleton. Newcastle go into the North Region zone as favourites after making the final for the last 2 years. If they again make the final, they will play in a curtain raiser to the Sydney Swans at the SCG later this month.
Teams from Coffs Harbour, the Manning, Hastings, Hunter, Macquarie, New England and North West are taking part in the titles. Coffs Harbour in the blue and gold and Manning in the green took to the paddock this morning. Both teams displayed some fine ball skills. The Coffs Harbour side dominated possession in the first half, taking the lead 2-1. The tables turned in the second half with Manning on the attack. They managed to bring the score up to 2-2 by full time. Other results today: Hastings beat Hunter 1-0 and Macquarie beat North West 2-0. Games tomorrow.
Lismore under-17s were definitely the form team of the competition, with the likes of Australian junior players Adam Fiddick and Anthony Alzos in the side. They could hardly go wrong. The Northerners were just too good and simply outplayed Hunter in their last game. The Hunter boys tried to out-tackle Clarence River in the purple and Newcastle were an even match. Both sides pushed each other, but they couldn't break the 2-2 deadlock. In the under-12s, Hunter were the overall winners and New England runners-up. And Newcastle was the venue last night for the Northern Federation bodybuilding titles. Some guys tried contortionist looks to attract the judges' attention. Others adopted the more up-front approach. Competitors also got to display their wares in a freeform section to music. Also on show, the only people in Newcastle with an all-season tan. The winner for the under 90 kilos division was Kevin Cooper. Although they're not normally known for their prowess on the cricket pitch, the Denmark team is well experienced.
We expect the standard to be very high. In Denmark we play their national under-19 team, and as such they play in a triangular series with other countries like Canada and including England, so they'll be a very strong team.
Winding up their training today at Toukley, the team looks very impressive. Nearly all the squad is aged 16 and has top-grade experience.
We've got a boy who's only 15, Tim O'Neill from Toukley, who won the second grade bowling averages in the Gosford all-age competition this year. We have two other boys who have played first grade in Gosford this year and another boy from second grade, so there's some experience amongst the kids.
They will be away for 5 weeks, and besides playing in Denmark, they will also compete in the Netherlands, Scotland, Wales and England. Their English game corresponds with an Ashes Test match at Trent Bridge, and they've been invited to meet the so far all-conquering Australian team. A large crowd watched from the Toronto Royal Motor Yacht Club, but it didn't do them much good because the boats were just like a blur. The race start for the Northern District Championship, an excellent example of the acceleration power of these unlimited inboards. Cornering at this speed can be a little tricky, but when you consider they're doing around 140 knots, they're lucky to grip onto the water. Brian McCosker from Bogabilla won with his boat Liberty. In the Alan Hattrell Memorial, the boats were outrunning the helicopter, the rooster tails rising nearly 10 metres into the air. Wayne Smith in his boat Dargill, an easy winner, followed by Mark Thornton in fine print.
The farmer was rounding up cattle on his property about 20 kilometres west of the Hunter Valley town of Dungog at 4:30 this morning when his Land Rover rolled down an embankment. The vehicle tumbled into a dam, trapping the man in his cab in waist-deep water. By the time rescue services were alerted and arrived at the scene about 8:30, the farmer was suffering from a crushed right foot and hypothermia. The local fire brigade began draining the dam, while the other services, including paramedics flown in by the Hunters Rescue helicopter, worked to free the man. About 40 minutes later, he was freed and airlifted to John Hunter Hospital. He was discharged this afternoon. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
To coincide with the Queen's birthday long weekend, police conducted Operation Royal, which amongst other offences targeted speed and drink driving. In the Upper Hunter, Hunter and Central Coast, 72 people were charged with drink driving. Police claim these campaigns, together with speed cameras, are helping to reduce the road toll.
I think in general people are aware that the police are out there doing their job and they're complying with the regulations fairly well, and it is reflected in those figures.
New South Wales had its lowest road toll in 42 years in 1992. In keeping with this trend, there was only one fatality in the region over the long weekend. A 17-year-old Barnsley youth was killed early on Sunday morning near Mountview, outside Cessnock, when the sedan he was a passenger in slid out of control and rolled several times. Despite New South Wales' low road toll, police are urging motorists not to become complacent.
One fatality over 4 days. That's one more than what we should have had, I suppose, you're looking at it that way.
Police say they will continue to target speeding and drink driving. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
There's a green tinge across the Hunter Valley after 2 weeks of good rain. The Scone region is part of the 20% of the state drought declared, and although the wet weather has been welcome, farmers there say they're not out of trouble yet.
It'll at least be the end of August before we get any growth here, so with a continuation of the heavy frost like we've experienced this morning, we'll need follow-up rain before we're going to have any useful spring.
Some fresh pasture growth is creeping through, but it has little nutrient value for stock.
Yes, it's better than what we had before, but it's very short.
Beef and dairy producer Neville Cameron has been feeding his cattle with cottonseed meal, each beast on 1 kilo a day. He says in his 45 years on the farm, this winter loomed as his toughest yet. If follow-up falls don't come through, that's a grim prophecy he may have to face. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Last night, almost 200 people gathered at Broadmeadow Police Youth Club to discuss the family impact of plans to force senior police to move to Sydney. 67 police from this region, all senior constables, are to be transferred. If they commute from Newcastle to Sydney and work, say, an early shift, they face a day that begins at 3 a.m, a long train trip, 8.5 hours on duty, and another train journey before arriving home long after most families' evening meal. That leaves 6.5 hours for family life, and that's what destroyed the marriage of Roy and Anita Worth.
He travelled on the train for 3.5 years. The next 3.5 years were spent trying to pull himself together and trying to make the most of marriage, which hasn't happened, of course.
Apart from worries about emotional strain, others at the meeting had economic concerns.
Spouses were worried about giving up their jobs, giving up their businesses, having to move children, and ultimately they may have to do that again after 3 years' service in Sydney. The police members have a continuation of employment, but their spouses have no such guarantee or even hope of continuation of employment or even carrying on in a business.
The families now hope to picket Sydney Police Headquarters within the next 3 weeks. Roadworks near East Maitland, headaches for morning commuters, a public relations nightmare for the RTA. But not here. It's entertainment while you wait, and it's proving a big hit with motorists. Who knows why they're doing it, but it's certainly bringing more smiles to the faces of drivers than you'd normally expect in this situation.